Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat Podcast, a platform that features professionals across a variety of industries and promotes growth mindset principles with a central pillar of championing the achievements of women. Our conversations explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to growth and empowerment. Today, we're speaking with Helen Wan, Deputy General Counsel at Jazz at Lincoln Center and author of The Partner Track, the story of an Asian American lawyer at an elite global firm who is pursuing the American dream that was adapted for television and is now streaming as an original TV series on Netflix. A graduate of Amherst College and the University of Virginia School of Law, Helen practiced law in New York City at Paul Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton, and Garrison, the entertainment law firm Frankfurt, Kernet, Klein & Sells, and as in-house counsel at media companies including Time Incorporated, A&E Television Networks, and Hachette Book Group USA. She currently teaches media law at NYU. When not writing or lawyering, Wan enjoys 90s nostalgia, classic Hitchcock films, SNL, reading and spending time with her family. She lives in New Jersey and is currently at work on her next book. Let's get started.
Helen, how are you doing?
Hello, how are you, Ashley?
So grateful to have you here in the Venture X studio. And we actually got the whole place to ourselves. And I really am appreciative for the fact that you came all the way here to do in person.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. I do have something to give you to start out with.
Oh.
You know, what would be Chinese if we don't have gifts, right?
Especially around Lunar New Year.
Right. This is for the family.
Oh,
who doesn't like chocolate?
Oh, that's
and then
so
I give
nice.
you a.
Thank you.
I'm not married, so I cannot really give. But this has like. Is this the cutest
Oh,
thing?
that is really cute.
Yeah, so that one's there.
Yes. For those who don't know, the red envelope or lucky or hongbao is given around Lunar New Year.
It's for February 17.
Yes.
I just have candy in there.
Oh.
And this is Urban Raccoon water bottle. I am a very good giver. And then my chipmunks.
Oh, wow.
And my tote. So
cool.
You could actually.
Okay, yeah. I look forward to checking these out.
I think maybe I would love to have your son give me some feedback.
Okay.
This is on multi-generational.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Communications.
Yeah.
And I have Gen Zs.
Okay.
He might be Alpha. Is he Alpha? I think he's Alpha.
He's 13, so
I think he's Gen Alpha.
And I don't want to speak for him, but I think he'll be pleased to give you feedback on your book.
Thank you.
No, thank you for the gifts.
Let's start with, who is Helen Wan? Tell me a little bit. You grew up in Virginia, like Burke area, went to TJ.
Yes.
Give us a little bit glimpse of who you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in the suburbs of DC, originally from California, but grew up in the suburbs of DC, on the East Coast. And I ended up going to a magnet high school, magnet public high school called Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, not far from here, even though I knew what I loved to do was work with words. But I ended up going to TJ just because it was a great public school education. And I then went to Amherst for college, where I majored in English and poli-sci. And like many English and poli-sci majors, when figuring out what to do post-college, I thought, okay, the calculus was not any more directed or complex than this. Just, what do I like to do? What am I passionate about? Well, I'm passionate about working with words. Well, in the triumvirate of acceptable careers to, for immigrant children, first generation Asian American children, many of us, I was like, well, okay, in that triumvirate, what's acceptable? Med school, law school, perhaps, I don't know, engineering, right?
High engineering.
Whatever the accepted careers were. I thought, well, out of those, lawyers work with words. Mm-hmm. It was not any more complicated than that. And so I took the LSAT. I did well enough that I got into law schools, and I went directly to law school, to University of Virginia Law School, where I got a great, education. And I picked UVA for many reasons, probably the most important of which was it was an in-state tuition too for me, meaning less student debt, thinking about how am I going to pay for law school. So I did go to UVA, and then, not to date myself, but upon graduation from UVA, when thinking about, okay, next step of the career journey, at that time, everyone was going into more corporate types of law firms, and they just made it easy. It was OCI, on-campus interview process. The law firms came to you.
Yes.
Came to
Those were
campus.
the days.
Right. Those were the days. And they would wine and dine the students that they were interested in interviewing. You would have callbacks in Washington, in Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, wherever. I picked the one that I felt that they did a lot of pro bono work and that I would have an opportunity to do media and entertainment work. Mm-hmm. Instead, what happened was everyone wanted to do media, exciting, sexy work, at that firm. And so I ended up being assigned to the M&A.
Merger and acquisition.
Yeah, the corporate
Very
group.
sexy.
Very, very not what I would have expected or picked for myself. But you do get a good grounding. They expect you to hit the ground running there. And so I stayed there for just over a year before I was fortunate enough to lateral over into a media and boutique intellectual property based law firm. There I stayed happily until I decided to make the move in-house to Time magazine, then a division of Time Warner. It was during that period of time when I was a young lawyer that I began writing the partner track, which began as scribbles.
The partner track?
Oh, yes. Yep. Which began as not a novel, but began as my little journal entries on my bus ride or my subway ride to and from work. And they were just my observations about the city, about patterns at work, like who sat with whom in the corporate cafeteria, who was being asked to go on certain important client meetings and who was not, who was finding certain mentors and sponsors within the firm and who was not,
yes.
And who was being invited to play squash at the, at the club on Thursday afternoons, which I didn't know about literally until the week that I left the firm, that even was a standing invitation, that was a thing for certain members of my class.
Society.
Yeah, it wasn't just like that particular firm.
Yeah,
and it's not even just
in the industry.
It's not even law firms alone either. It's just the corporate culture that felt very alien to me. So.
Do you have anyone in your family that were in law?
No. No, I'm the first.
A pioneer.
I'm the first lawyer in my family. No one went to law school.
I see.
So,
would you like to know a little bit about me?
But yeah,
there's a couple
yes,
of things that are similarities. I am an immigrant from Hong Kong.
Okay.
First generation.
Yeah.
My parents were not highly educated, so they ran a restaurant in
Okay.
Lawrence, Kansas, of all the places.
In Kansas.
Yes. Well, we were in Virginia first. And then
Also running a business
no.
in Virginia. Oh,
My grandparents were here. They applied for us, so they applied for 10
Okay.
of us to come here.
Okay.
They were also my grandfather also worked at a Chinese restaurant.
Okay.
And so he worked really hard to get
Yeah.
the sponsorship and everything, and
Right.
it's not cheap. And so when my parents came, some of the friends didn't want them to raise kids in like big city because they were afraid that we'll join gangs. I was like, okay. Very practical reality, right? And so they got us over to Lawrence, Kansas. I'm like, ugh.
but why? I'm just curious. Like, why?
Why
was
Lawrence,
Kansas? In
Because
in particular.
the friend that my dad had was actually, they grew up in the same neighborhood in Hong Kong. It was like an elderly, and they had a couple like grocery stores and Chinese restaurants in Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay.
And they were helping my parents look for something that is small town feel.
Oh, okay.
And then that way we won't get
into a gang activity. Ashley will avoid the gang activity lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm anti-gang. So we went to a college town, Lawrence, Kansas. We cannot go anymore. Like, there's literally not that many Asians, but the Asian Americans that were there mostly were very highly educated. As a matter of fact, I went to Vegas for Backstreet Boys concert, right? It was an experience.
I would have loved to see them.
Next time we go out, let you know.
Yeah.
We got the tickets, but we have a family friend that actually really were very nice to us because we didn't even speak that much English at the time. That family is actually a professor from UMKC, I think.
Okay.
And they really helped us because we barely spoke any English, and so there were a lot of issues that we didn't know how to navigate. And they're also from Hong Kong, so they moved to Vegas now. The husband and wife are in Vegas, so whenever I go to Vegas, I would like text them because they're always traveling somewhere. So I would like send a picture of this video. It's like, "Are you in town?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm in town. We have a New Year party on Sunday. Do you want to come?" I'm like, I'll be back home by Sunday. I was like, "What are you in town for?" I said, "I'm going to a
Backstreet Boys,
concert."
actually.
And I want it that way.
Exactly. That was too easy.
Yeah, that was too easy.
Fun.
Yes. And then so and they had just gotten back from like traveling, and so I took them out to lunch, and they were like, "Let me come pick you up." I'm like, "No, I'll just over there. I'll meet you guys there." So we had a good lunch, and they asked my mom how's she doing, blah blah blah. So anyway, I was poli-sci, East Asian languages and culture. And then everybody wants me to do like pre-law. My parents did not expect me, they didn't really want me to do poli-sci because it seems too controversial. They want me to stick with like accounting, something that is like safe.
Safe, yes.
Secure. Like, no, I don't want to do that. And the fact that, they're not necessarily highly educated, so they didn't have as much influence in my decision.
Okay.
They would let me know, and then I'm just like, I don't think so. So that was kind of how it went. My professors, they had more influence in the direction, but I didn't want to go to law school. For the longest time, so instead I was like very defiant of me. I was like, I'm going to go to grad school. That's kind of how it went, and I was going to do like research, think tank type of work, but they don't really pay, and it didn't really quite work out. So I ended up starting in a construction litigation firm.
Oh, okay.
I don't know anything about construction. And for a couple of years, met some really amazing people, and then eventually didn't like, I don't think that I really want to do in this field, and I took the GW ABA program on paralegal certificate.
Oh, okay.
And did quite well. So the professor then, he was an associate at Morgan, Lewis and Bacchus, was like, maybe you should think about going into IP. Well, I don't know anything about IP. He said, well, you did well in my class. I think you can figure it out.
Huh.
And so I was like, okay. So I did. I went to Howry. And for under a year, and eventually move on to Finnegan.
Okay.
And the entire time is patent litigation. So for someone who didn't want to go to law school, I ended up supporting and working with lawyers for like over 20 plus years. Totally dating myself too. But I started at 5. And you started at 5 too.
Yeah.
So that was
interesting. So that's how you found your way to the IP arena then?
Yeah, that was kind of, because, Howry was a GP firm. And then I was there for under a year, like 11 months and a half. And the case was over. They started sending me to do second request, like DOJ second request. And then at the time, it was like so document intensive. So we were usually like sent out to be offsite doing document review. And it's like interesting environment. It was good work. I had really good colleagues at the time. But then at some point, I decided that I wanted to do more focus on patent work, litigation. I'm in patent litigation the entire time, so I don't do that much trademark or copyright or trade secrets. Okay. So it was really weird that someone who has a liberal art degree ended up doing something that's super scientific.
Right. Patents. Yeah.
So you also did some IP work. What area did you do? Did you do more copyright?
Always on the intellectual property and media transactional side. I've never been a litigator, and I'm curious about that, about how things might have taken a different career turn had I started off in litigation.
Our friend Jennifer Wu is a total litigator.
Right. Yeah. Jen is fantastic.
She's
really
a
wonderful lawyer.
She's also like such a wonderful voice for the Asian Americans as well. So really, we actually interviewed her early on over Zoom, and we had a really great chat. Yeah. I mean, I think we know a lot of people in the same space.
Right.
You're not from New York. You live in New York now, so we probably will have a lot of people that we know in common. Especially the Greenwich Rule people have been very supportive. Yeah. And they're also mostly from Paul Weiss.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Do you know Megan Raymond?
The name sounds familiar.
She's also from Paul Weiss. She just left yesterday to go to Milan for the winter
for the Olympics. Oh,
yeah, I know. Those are the lives, right? All right. Let's talk about how did you get so good about storytelling?
In many ways, being a lawyer is about finding credible narratives and storytelling. Even on the transactional side, you're trying to convince, persuade, persuasive writing, persuasive argument. And I've always been just a lover of books. I'm a book nerd, and I found refuge in libraries. As a kid, I was a pretty shy kid. There was a very alert librarian. She kind of like took a shine to me and saw me finding refuge in libraries, in our public library. And so she just started, she was like, hey, have you discovered this series? Do you know this author? Do you, and just authors that I had never read before, and she would like introduce me to like a series. I just fell in love with books. But it never occurred to me that writing could be an actual career for anyone. Even though I loved books and loved libraries and was this like, total book nerd, it never occurred to me that writing can be a career. A creative career can work out sometimes for people. It never occurred to me. So I went to law school. I'm happy that eventually I did find my way to writing. And if you had told me, it was just very serendipitous. If you had told me, when I was a little girl, like a shy kid kind of finding refuge, hiding out in libraries, that one day I would have a book myself. Some years later it would turn into a Netflix TV show. I wouldn't have believed you. I'm like, what? Do people do that? But yes, they do.
Did you consider yourself an introvert?
Yes.
Okay. How does that actually resonate with you for someone that is an introvert and then sort of made it famous, especially after the adaptation of the Netflix series? How does that journey resonate with Helen?
Again, if someone could have crystal balled things back when I was like, a kid in elementary school, in junior high, in high school, and then college, and then law school even, had said, okay, you're going to do this, and then one day you will actually, like a part of your work will be speaking with student audiences, lawyer audiences, other audiences about just achieving belonging and inclusion and fairness and equity in these rarefied spaces. Again, I would have been like, public speaking in front of so many audiences, no. He's like, no. Yeah. But I do really, really enjoy connecting with all of these cool human beings. And so that helps get over the kind of like stage fright and my natural introvert tendencies.
I think one of the things is that once you start focusing on the content and less on the self, then it's really what make the difference.
I agree.
Most of my friends do not consider me an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. So I was settled with being an ambivert. You do what you have to do to get the job done.
I totally agree.
Podcast because I do like public speaking.
So I was going to ask you, how did you get into podcasting?
Well, I couldn't get into a Toastmaster International that actually regularly held during COVID. And then I don't enjoy public speaking. Some people actually do. I've seen people that really enjoy doing it, but not me.
Most fellow authors who are my friends that we speak candidly don't truly enjoy public speaking, but have over the years, eventually they feel more comfortable. Eventually people feel more comfortable doing it just because it is such an integral part of their work.
You know what I hate the most? The self-promotion part.
Yeah,
I hate
exactly.
that part. I could talk about content. I could talk about different things. Yeah. So I was a paralegal.
Right.
I was not an attorney. I worked in the paralegal space for a long time. In a law firm, you have the different hierarchy. Is like you check the boxes whether you're an attorney or non-attorneys.
Okay.
You're like staff, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's not necessarily you have opportunity. I got promoted to be case manager at one point, and then so I was there for a while. But then you have to really follow instructions. There's not a whole lot of creativity that you could really have in law, at least not for you don't miraculously want to prepare exhibits in a certain way. You just need to be present and follow the instructions. So that part of it was interesting. And then, so I never thought that I would actually leave the law firm life until 2019. So 2017 is when my dad passed.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And he fell, and then he was gone in 4 hours. Oh. Literally. Ambulance went to the hospital. It was kind of PTSD type of thing. And I was so great at suppressing emotion. So I was a workaholic already. So I just ended up doing more of work. And my mom lives with me. She didn't drive, and she just turned 80. And she's very active, go to Zumba and kickboxing.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I know.
That's cool.
She's actually stronger than I am. But realistic expectation that I didn't think that I could manage working at a law firm. And the industry, it doesn't really matter what law firms you go to, but the industry, litigation is demanding. They want you to do a motion to compel, you gotta go. Do stuff. They want you to go cover for deposition, and you kind of have to go. 2019, I think I started really thinking about how to realistically manage my life and expectation, because I failed to do that for a longest time. I was a yes person. I was a people pleaser. I was the first one to get this stuff done, first one in, last one out. Yeah. And that was something that I was actually really proud of, because that's what my parents taught me. They work at a Chinese restaurant, and they go
that's
in
the work
early.
ethic. Yes.
Yep.
And
so that was really interesting. Yeah. And then 2019, I was like, I don't think I can do this. This is not sustainable. I'm probably gonna have a heart attack.
Was there a specific moment, or what was the impetus where the aha moment where you went, this is not healthy or sustainable for me. I need to pivot. I need to figure something out that's just healthier. Well, because I know a lot of people who have had that aha moment, and especially lately, and since pandemic times,
Great question. Not one specific. I think it's building up. It was escalating. When I couldn't like be at all places at the same time for everybody.
Yes.
And litigators are mostly like type A. Sometimes super type A. I'm a type A myself.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to even let myself down. I'm used to getting like outstanding evaluations. So if I get like, say above average, I probably would not be too happy with myself. So that is that particular internal struggle in terms of like, I'm not perfect. Of course, I'm not perfect. Now I know that. and then I was like, I don't know how to like achieve that balance.
Right.
And I don't think that there's a realistic way because I've been saying too many yeses over the years. So people will not accept a no for me. They'll accept it from other people, but not from me, at least in my mind, right? So specific moment is that I just start thinking about that a lot, and then eventually I was like, I was really dragging to go to work, and I don't do that. So I'm like, I need to start talking to people. So I talked to a friend of mine who's a guy. He was like, you need to talk to someone. I was like, of course, I will talk to anyone. So I talked to Dan. She was a complete stranger, and she gave me about 15 minutes of her time and talked about billable hours. She started her own, she does cover trial and ITC and stuff like that. So she was also a paralegal from a large firm that later left and started her own consultancy. So I asked her some questions and asked her, hey, what do you think about realistically this is going to happen? You know, how what made you decide? She was like, well, you know, at some point you just get fed up, you know, and you also know that you have to do what's best for you. Nobody else is going to be your best advocate because you have to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
I think I knew that around and I was in the patent space for about 20 plus years, so I know people. You know, I know people in high places, low places, high places, everywhere, you know.
Everywhere in between.
I even know like a skeleton athlete that is 3 times Olympian, Jane Channel. You know, she just competed in Milan. You know, COVID does not do a lot of really good things, but it does open up a lot of online experiences. So I ended up, you know, talking to a lot of people. I just talked to pretty much anybody. So yes, at some point I was like, it took me about 8 months to decide that I'm going to come out and do my own thing.
Did you know that this was the thing that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
No, I just want to hide in my basement and do my thing. And I want to go to Australia and New Zealand really bad because I'm a traveler. I knew that if I work for a firm, it will be very difficult to take like a month off or longer. So I don't know. I was actually looking for a less busy life and it didn't really come out that way. The first couple of years, yes, you know, but I was able to do a lot of things. That's actually when I started writing too.
Oh, okay.
So my vision at that time was like do maybe 1 or 2 clients and work on with 1 or 2 clients, doing some filing work and then travel and become a nomad. I mean, I'm still nomading a lot, but you know, I would love to be like a working nomad because you can do remote filing anywhere. The service part is different, but you know, I do only PTAB cases and now ex parte. You know, a lot of changes in that space. So yeah, it's not at all. I didn't know what is P&L at the beginning, so I applied for a Tory Burch Foundation Fellowship. Did not get it. I applied for the FedEx Fellowship. Did not get it. But it really prepared me for a lot of things because I hate appearing on video. I was like, oh my God. Video like at 10 pounds and I'm super self-conscious. I was like, oh God, this is not good. And when I did like a pitch, I was telling one of my guests, I was like, when I did a pitch, I was like almost crying in front of the video because I don't know what to say. I feel so uncomfortable looking at the video. But listen to me. I'm like me. I was like, okay. Eventually, I think that practice does not make perfect. Practice just makes it better.
Yes. Tolerable, or sometimes if you're lucky, but even more than tolerable. Like, you know, but very few people do I know who genuinely, authentically love public speaking. You know, and you know, obviously being Asian American, the thing about self-promotion, that is still very tough. Very, very challenging for most. I don't want to generalize for every single Asian American that I know. But yes, the majority of them will candidly say the self-promotion piece is just doesn't come naturally, let's say.
So
it's hard. It's hard.
It is really, really hard. And then the thing is like, I hate to be like so consistent on social media, but when you own a business, part of it is that. And people do not follow companies, they follow people.
Yes.
That's personal branding, right? That was the toughest challenges. And also because my mom's also on social media. Sometimes she see my stuff. And then it's like, why did you do that?
Why'd you say that?
She asked me a lot of things, and lately my response was like, because I can. And then it sounds so defiant, but at the same time, it's like, I really don't know that. I really, and she was so funny because I was talking to her. I told her, like, I said, I met up with so-and-so in Vegas and took them out to lunch. She was like, I hope you pay. I was like, yes, I did, Mom. You raised me good enough to do that.
Like,
and
Mom, I'm a grown-up now. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that was good. But then, I think like the old family friends, they were talking to me, and then I think one of them, there are a couple of statements that I don't know quite how to take it. So for example, so what are you doing in Vegas for? I was like, I'm coming to see a concert. To some people, that is a little bit strange. And then it blurted out, it's like, but
but it's the Backstreet Boys. You don't understand.
but the thing is like, but I have always seen you as a bookworm. Yeah, bookworms can change too, and they can entitled to like music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how is that? Okay.
So I was like, okay. I mean, the good thing is that I didn't really take it personal, and then they were like, this other part I take it a little personal, but I didn't think that you really work at a restaurant that much. I was like, I spent most of my youth there.
Oh.
And told my mom. My mom said, yeah, you really didn't do that much. I said, Mom, I really did that much, but I was a student and was blah, 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 So anyway, when I came home yesterday, I took my mom out for dinner because I texted her from the airport. I was like, don't cook. I'm taking you out for Valentine's Day. And she was like, okay, we did that. We talked about that. And he was like the family friends like, why is your mom not here? I'm like, because she wants to stay home. I don't think that I'm taking her to Backstreet Boys. I don't know what she's gonna say, but
you never know. Maybe
I mean, she might actually enjoy it. This is the third time that I went to Spheres. I saw the Postcard on Earth, The Wizard of Oz, and then the Backstreet Boys. This one is actually, I think, because it has so much energy. The other ones is that you're just watching a movie, right? This one, the special effects was like,
I'm sure,
off the top. If you ever see that, I mean, I think the venue makes a huge difference.
It does, I think. I
so
agree.
it's almost like launching us into outer space. And I cannot like share a whole lot of things. Instagram has a 90-second rule in terms of licensing for music and things like that. So I was like cutting things down to 59 seconds. On Instagram, and me and my friend was like, can you share that video? I'm like, I have shared on Google Drive, cannot share in public, violation or copyrights, cannot do this. And all the people that I went are women in patents.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, everybody is like attorneys except for me, and then all in IP. I know one person two people from that group, but one I'm closer to, and she basically organized the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
And I just have to Venmo. I said, next time when you do that, just let me know. I'll Venmo you anytime. And so that was really good. All right, let's get back to your stuff. Netflix series. Tell me about the moment when someone had actually contacted you. So you wrote the book in 2013.
Yes, it was released by Macmillan, and then not till years later did the Netflix thing happen.
2022, I think August is when it came out, right? Did my research. Tell me about like the day, for example, when you got the news that, Netflix is considering doing this. What's going through Helen's mind?
I did not believe it. My agent, Josh, called me at home because it was during COVID.
See, COVID did some good, Not a lot, but...
Silver linings to everything, even. But yes, it was during COVID times. And so I was working from home, like everyone. And frankly, I was lucky in that after Macmillan published my novel, it did get optioned. The film and television rights did get optioned. But as you probably know, all of the stars must align in order for anything to actually happen. So even if you are lucky enough to publish a book, then have the film TV rights optioned, that's exciting, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all the stars will align and that anything will ever actually be produced. Honestly, I had kind of, in my mind, sort of like almost forgotten about it because it had been so long since the book's release and it had been long enough since the option that I was just kind of like, nothing's really gonna happen. And also it was during COVID, and so I had gotten close, a couple of times, but had been told by my agents it's not going to happen and nothing's really moving. It's COVID. Things are kind of at a standstill. Things are very, very unpredictable. There were some kind of like close but no cigar moments. And each time is a little bit heartbreaking, right, to the author, because each time you get another kind of phone call that is kind of like, I'm sorry, but there was a nibble of interest, but that's not going to happen. So there were a lot of Charlie Brown, Lucy, and the football moments. A lot. On the road to, So when you are an author or any kind of author, not necessarily just a novelist, you gotta prepare yourself. You gotta harden your heart a bit. You can't have a thin skin. And so by the time the happy call came from my agent and he said, hey, look, are you sitting down? And I was like, yes, I'm a lawyer. I'm always sitting down. I'm always drafting
typing all the time.
I'm always drafting agreements or, negotiating agreements. And he said, no, really, are you sitting down? And I was like, okay. And he said, I think Netflix wants to do it, and I think this time it's for real. I think it's really going to happen this time. I was like, who is this? What are you who is this? What do you want? And so, but he was right. It did proceed to production, and it was a wonderful, exciting time. I got to visit set. I got to meet the wonderful cast and crew, a really, really talented group of human beings. And I feel very thankful at everything that has happened.
That has to be so validating to yourself in terms of being accepted like that.
Yeah, it's like that famous Sally Field Academy Award acceptance speech. Like, they like me, you really like me. There's that, because it's almost every single person that I know who work in any field, not just media, arts, IP, entertainment, does suffer from bouts of imposter syndrome, right? All the time. From perfectionism, that is sometimes debilitating perfectionism, and also sometimes debilitating imposter syndrome as well. And I'm no exception.
I think it's almost even harder when you have a success track, and then it's what do you do to top next? Right?
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
At least that's kind of what next? So I think one of the things that I've been after Netflix, then what? Because 2022 is when it released, and I have not finished the book, but I did watch some clips and different things. And one of the scenes that I really like is so the book, Ingrid, is actually Chinese American.
Yes.
But in the Netflix series, Ingrid is actually
Korean
Korean
American.
American. Were you thinking that because this has more wider application to other sort of ethnicity, that's why you're okay with that? How do you reconcile that?
Well, first of all, I'll just, to be perfectly honest, that wasn't a creative decision made by me. But they did inform me beforehand that we're going to take some creative license with the story in its adaptation, the process of adapting it for television. And they were very, very upfront about the fact that one change we're considering doing is changing the character, Ingrid, my protagonist, from being Chinese American to being Korean American. And that had a lot to do with a lot of factors, but the character is, I think, very beautifully portrayed by the actor Arden Cho, who actually also voices Rumi in K-pop Demon Hunters, and just a very
golden
talented human being, talented actor. And so when they were making casting decisions, there were certain decisions made. Arden happens to be Korean American herself. What ultimately ended up happening in the Netflix TV series, Ingrid, is also Korean American.
So one of the scenes that I like the most is actually when the three other partners' names were announced.
Yes.
And then she was not selected.
Right.
And she went and confronted the older partner.
Right. Marty Adler.
Yeah. Well, let him know that, but this is what you promised if I chair the diversity gala. And then it was like, you should work harder. And it was like, I already work hard. And then she basically was like, I quit. That.
Well, no spoilers, but that's,
I mean, that's on YouTube. So,
exactly.
That part, it's so hard to, most of the people, I guess in the old days, I think what I've seen is I'm a Gen Xer. So I have actually supervised some millennials before.
Right.
And now a lot more Gen Zers. But under my own company. I remember if I was still just, in the old days, I was just oh, what a disappointment. I'll go back and work hard. Right?
Yeah.
And then at some point, I went to visit one of my millennial colleagues that I supervised before, and she had 2 kids, and I went to visit her, on vacation or something like that, and she was quitting too, and I asked her, I said, why did you quit? She goes, I was walking to work one day, I decided this is not what I want to do with my life.
So she did.
And I said, and I went back and just did it, and she's also Chinese American.
Oh, okay.
I'm how? It took me 18 years to come up with an 8-month plan. How did you do your thing like that? So I wonder, do you see, you wrote this a while back, do you see, and you also teach us at NYU, right?
Yes.
So do you see a lot of differences in terms of the generation?
I do.
Oh,
that's a great question.
More.
No, I totally, everything that you were just describing, I do see. When I either am teaching or supervising millennials or Gen Z or just younger colleagues and students, and, just getting to know them, I am struck by how frequently and just how much more naturally and much more frequently they'll kind of take stock and go, is this making me feel fulfilled? is this truly what I want to be doing with my life, my energy, and my time? Because if not, I'm going to do something about it. And that was never.
It was never
ingrained in me that to do that, take stock and make sure that you are really making meaningful use of every day of your life or every phase of your life. But it makes me happy. It makes me encouraged to see, right, these students and the younger colleagues that perhaps I mentor or something have that self-knowledge, self-awareness, and just motivation to do that and not be spinning their wheels for decades, doing something and then one day wake up and go, it's not really what I want to be doing with my
2 decades
career.
later, it's like, how do I get up the courage? I'm like, well, I wish I had that courage. So I think part of it is like we have a lot of experience, lived experiences that sometimes wish that I could actually, make that decision faster. But there's also lessons learned, and we gain certain things, and I think passing on to the next generation is so important.
Yes,
and I love the fact that despite your hectic schedule at work, and you also teach us at NYU. Do you teach IP?
Media law. I teach at NYU's Center for Publishing, Writing, and Media.
Oh, okay.
And it's a great cohort. It's a seminar style. It's people who are very passionate about media, about books, about good storytelling. That's why they're in the program. So
I'm very excited that we are going to do something in May. And
that's right.
That's awesome. I think we're going to be rewriting some narrative and helping people to talk about a topic that is very important. Who better than you to actually be there to share with us?
That's kind. Thank you.
Well, only speak the truth. Don't have time for anything else. If you have to, so what is your next hope for the partner track?
The partner track? It was already very thrilling and exciting to see my little story, my little subways scribblings from decades ago as a young associate at a large law firm. Those scribblings turned first into a novel when I decided to turn my basically little scribblings and observations about the city into a story arc novel with a beginning, middle, and end. And then to see that taken to the big screen is thrilling enough. I would love to see, future seasons and see Ingrid's story and also Tyler's story, Rachel's story continue. That would be great. I would love to see that for the partner track, but I'm excited about other projects that I have in the works too and other stories that need to be told.
That's awesome. I mean, are you working on any specific, like another book?
I am.
Now?
Yes, I am working on something specific right now that I'm really excited about. It is not a direct sequel or prequel or anything to the partner track, but definitely explores the deeper dive into the themes of people's complicated relationship with ambition, people's how our family baggage and cultural and societal factors impact professional decision making and personal decision making, actually, and just how people read or misread cues, signals in not just the workplace, but just in life that really, really do affect professional outcomes and personal decision making. Yeah.
You must be really enjoying what you do right now because I have a voice to help give advice and also have so much influence over I don't know about that, but thank you. More than most people. And then I think now, like, our society is struggling with so many things.
Yes.
And one of the things that I was talking to a friend that it was like sometimes even the arts and the creative part is getting lost in the society. And I don't necessarily teach at university, but one of the things is I do like presentations and webinars for someone who doesn't like public speaking. That is really interesting how things turned out. The other thing is that I figured that I just need to work hard with myself, and fun was never really part of the equation. So I was working from, at restaurant, school, and then eventually I was like, crap, I don't know that I can actually put waitress and hostess on my resume. Well, how far would that get me? So I started thinking about that when I was in college, and I still have to have the family obligation to help my parents out. It's a family restaurant, you gotta be there. And so then I signed up for additional work at the Center for East Asian Studies at University of Kansas.
Oh, okay.
Because I went to KU, Rock JR. And then I was like, just so many things. So I'm like total workaholic even during my young age. Just trying to balance everything. And then I didn't know how to say no. So it just like keep piling on. And I'm a great multitasker. I could get a lot of multitasking. But nowadays people said that multitasking is not necessarily a good thing.
Right. That's what they say.
That's what they said. But you still have 24 hours only.
Right.
You gotta get stuff done. So So I thought that, one of the things that I really enjoy is during the podcasting, it was not an original intended expectation. It was like, it really mostly about me practicing conversational skills, being comfortable. And then I started making friends and really amazing connection with people. And we just through the different chats, because a lot of time, I have some primary questions. And then like in law, litigation, you gotta prep. You have to do all these things. So if you talk to most of my audience and guests are usually in highly achieved professional arena.
Okay.
So they like to have a script. So do I have the questions? Yes, you have the question. For like early on, I would follow to the T's. Mm-hmm. And then, because I wasn't even confident in having a conversation, I was just like, I'm just asking some questions, And what changed?
What changed for you?
So this is season 4. So I emailed Seth Godin, because I follow him, and I go to some of his live LinkedIn and different things, and I read his books. I even would comment. I like challenging people. You would never know, but in writing.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm much more comfortable behind, the screen or the words. So I critique or have some thoughts about this is strategy. Make better decision. That's just one of the later books. And I was like, well, this is what my thoughts about this. I even wrote Adam Grant. I didn't know. I disagree with you. I'm going to write a critique about this on my newsletter. He was like, okay.
Okay.
And then he responded. And there's so many things that I remember when I was doing in college, because I had a really good professor. So mentorship is really good, really important.
Yeah, and the right mentor can totally take your career trajectory in a totally different direction than if you had never met that person in your life.
Exactly.
It's crazy. It's pretty.
That's why I said that you are very influential. So I was like, I didn't even know until I think some of the podcast episodes came out that I started writing like people from the Harvard program and negotiation when I was doing my thesis. And like Roger Fisher, William Ury, the getting to yes and getting past no, and I asked them all these questions. And then they were like, I just thought that I wanted to let you know, this is what my thesis is about, blah, blah, blah. And this is what I'm thinking about meta-analysis, and what are you thinking, blah, blah, blah. They all wrote me back, and I forgot that part of my life, because it was like so ingrained into life, following instructions, doing things that other people wants me to do, but not at all what I wanted to do.
Right.
So the podcasting has really given me a lot of unexpected ways to feel like that I'm rejuvenating and also validating my own self, and not necessarily based on the evaluation system. Yeah, other people say that you're outstanding because you don't know how to say no.
I feel the same way. I think it's just so incredibly important for everyone to have some sort of creative outlet, whatever it is. It could be writing, it could be podcasting, but whatever it is.
I mean, people are probably wondering and say, you have to love what you do.
Yes.
I think that's really important. Otherwise, it will be a drag. Life can be very just not fun. So I interviewed a podcast guest that used to work at Sony, and he was a senior VP, I think, in litigation, that I barely had a chance to really interact with, because you're paralegal, you just get this stuff done. And I remember him, and he's a tech entrepreneur. So I said, hey, Jamie, would you like to be on my interview? He was like, sure. So we talked, and I thought that was really funny. He was like, for me, it has to be fun. I'm like, the fun is not part of my equation. Right. It wasn't anyway. So I think it was like, people were like, but you were a bookworm, that you are not supposed to go to concert. That doesn't fit my memory of you. And then people change. So I think 2026, one of the things that I really wanted to do is to have more fun. And so I'm leaving for San Francisco in like 10 days. People, like one of my guests was like, well, I want your life. Well, you really don't want my life, but it looks great, and I don't share everything because not everything is fitted for social media, and also not for public, because nobody else needs to know your life. Not your, but nobody really needs to know.
I get it. Yeah.
To close, let's talk about mentorship a little bit. It's very, really important to have the right mentor.
Yes.
How does
sponsors.
And sponsors. Yes.
Mentors.
Yes.
Just to,
they're just there. Yeah, I know.
Right. No. Mentorship is important and great. Mentors are terrific. They take you out to lunch. They point you in the right direction with hopefully really authentically helpful resources. But a sponsor can do all that and more. A sponsor does that and talks about you to others who can help
you.
Yes.
Yeah. How does one go about finding mentors and sponsors?
Finding them?
Yeah.
Again, not only with the students that I teach at NYU, but also other younger colleagues. I have been really, really impressed and amazed at how proactively they go about finding, identifying, and then approaching in the right way, and trying to develop relationships with the right mentors and sponsors. I wish I had known how to do that when,
That's so
decades ago.
And there's also LinkedIn.
Oh, okay, yes.
Right?
Right.
And
so tools like LinkedIn that didn't exist when. So LinkedIn, other social media, platforms, their own personal websites, blogs, their blogs, sometimes even their podcasts, right?
Yeah, podcasts.
But just really reaching out in very smart ways, like identifying, that person is a good potential mentor for me, but for specific reasons. Not just like showing up, which sometimes would happen to me back when I was at the large law firm or other firms and in-house, where they come to legal, they knock on your door, and go, hi, will you be my mentor? Okay, but now it's much more when people approach me saying, hey, I'm wondering if you could give me your thoughts on some guidance on this. It's more specific. It's very, very tailored, specific, and specifically the reason why I come to you with this is X.
I think for me, I'm pretty good at connecting with people. Again, for someone that is not an extrovert, that is tough. But I think that I generally like to talk to people and learn about people's life. And I think people can tell that energy. And one of the things that people use that consistently to describe interaction with me is that you bring good energy.
I can see that.
Why did you say yes to this podcast?
Oh, why did I agree to come on this podcast?
And in person too. I mean, my God, that's huge.
No, because you do come across as with the positive energy that you really are trying to inspire people with your message, that the selection of guests that you choose. I think it's very important to come across authentically, and you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I take that as a compliment.
Yes, it is.
I'm not going to be modest about that because
it is a compliment, because authenticity has always been important, but even more so, I think, in this day and age where we currently live. This is a very challenging time to be working in media or arts at all. And authenticity in everything, but authenticity, especially when trying to suss out good stories and tell truthful and good stories, is everything, I think.
Well, thank you, Helen. You are amazing, and I can't wait to see you in March and also in May. We're still working on a couple of lined up of people, but it's going to be amazing. We already got the venue at Temple Eye Hilton Times Square.
Right,
thank you so much, Helen. That's so amazing.
It's great to finally connect in person, and I'm really looking forward to March and May.
Yes, March and May. Thank you.